little bit about the week that was and what we look forward to the week ahead. And Jim Kennedy, our buddy, joins us on Friday on the national show of Kennedy Institute of Public Policy Research. Dude, it's been a hell of a week, man. We touched on a little bit on Friday, but I don't want to say that the smoke is clearing, but reality is now there, and I am disappointed with who we are as a country right now.
Well, I can't say that I could really disagree with that concept right now. Hadn't really thought too much, but yeah, I would say that we've seen better days and we've been better people and done better things than went on this week, even though we did have the 9/11 memorial for the 24th anniversary. But yeah, we've talked about the tribalism in politics and how certainly that isn't de-escalating. That is probably getting deeper and deeper and more tribal, if there is such a thing. I remember a couple weeks ago, I was thinking about this after the Charlie Kirk shooting, assassination, that you'd brought up a couple weeks ago about somebody that was saying that misinformation to them was their largest threat to America. I don't know if it was millennials or something, what group it was or what
Yeah,
organization. And after starting to think through that and think about how there was probably the analysis that got the shooter to where they thought that Charlie Kirk was that much of a threat that needed to be taken out, you have to wonder how much misinformation played into that. And then also from all of the news that came out immediately thereafter and the fog of war that comes out under, for all the people that were basically making analysis on faulty information, incomplete information, out of context information, that it's that misinformation problem. I wasn't something I really thought I took that seriously when you were talking about it, but I can really see now that really, I've kind of come around to see that the depth of what that can do and what that can drive in people, and what it can do as far as a nation, as far as influencing people. Because there are a lot of people out there. I fought a lot of, I mean, not fought, but I've discussed with a lot of people on Twitter, or at least tried to engage with a lot of people. And X, sorry, Elon. And just finding just a plethora of misinformation and beliefs out there about what goes on, as far as what, who some of these shooters in the past have been, their motives, and and things like that. And yeah, misinformation is simply, I mean, it's not the only problem. There's lots of things, the tribalness of it, the emotionalness, the need to vilify anybody you disagree with, is obviously part of it too. And how each, and also there's an interesting thing too, tangentially thing we can come back to later, is the national report card came out last week, or the week before, and it is dismal.
yeah,
And
we're
you
not
have to
doing well.
think, though, the one of the things though that I kind of look at on that is, if you've got an uneducated public, or basically uneducated students that are graduating to become citizens, as part of the as they matriculate into adulthood, you look at that and go, well, isn't somebody who's not well educated easily to be more manipulated than somebody who isn't? Someone who has better critical reasoning skills, someone who has better, skills as far as reading things and understanding innuendo, and like that. And I think that is definitely, if you tie all those things together, I know, like I said, it's somewhat tangentially related to it. That could be a little bit of how we're getting here as far as this stuff, but something's got to change. I mean, this is not good. And as I said on the national show, I'm pretty sure it's going to get worse before it's going to get better. And I don't know where we're going to be, where bottom is going to be on this.
Yeah,
And I don't think we're really that close to the bottom, unfortunately.
no,
Literally, to me, it's like, short of alien invasion, is about the only, and I don't mean illegal aliens, I mean alien, space aliens, nanu nanu, take me to your leader type of aliens, that we're really going to be able to get to the bottom of this without something drastically happening, or some real change of philosophy occurring, amongst the people of America.
I just, it's crazy, Jim. All weekend, I told my wife, so it happened. I've been working nonstop. I said Friday, I can't wait. Get home, do nothing. I got maybe 60 text messages of articles sent about this or about that, about horrible things that people are saying about Charlie being dead, or about, and I think, man, the algorithms, people continuing to feed the genie what you're asking for, man. That's just giving you what you ask for. And I'm sitting here going, yeah, I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. And I don't know what it's going to take. We're so divided. I couldn't even imagine the fact that could you imagine the day after JFK gets assassinated if we had, you know, people going and saying, "Whoa, how great this is, huh? He deserved." I mean, could you imagine that? Or the day after MLK, I mean, yeah, you would have had some white supremacists probably been thrilled,
Yeah.
but the fact is that even people who maybe there was a certain quorum that we had, it's not there anymore. And now everybody decides that this is what they're going to do. And I sit there and I think, who the F are you people? What's wrong with you? Who raised you that you thought this was a good idea? Well, now you guys are against freedom of speech. No, you had the right to say what you did. You had the right to put it out there. This is just, you're getting fired and you're getting disciplined because there were repercussions with what you were saying.
Yeah, you have freedom of speech. You don't have freedom of consequences from your speech. No one stopped you from saying if you wanted to celebrate Charlie Kirk's murder, it's a horrible person, but you can do that. No one is going to stop you from doing it. But when you come along and are surprised that your employer, who doesn't want to be associated with things like that, or maybe doesn't even want to be associated with any sort of politics in general, because they're a business and not a group that's pushing an agenda or a narrative or a political philosophy, they just want you to buy their products. Yeah, you're going to have repercussions. I look at it this way. I try to explain to people: you have the freedom to go up and call your boss an a-hole, but you're going to probably have ramifications if you do that. Same thing,
Yeah.
just a little different. You're just talking to a different group of people, or you post on social media that I think my boss is a Nazi a-hole. Okay, I don't personally think my boss. I think he's a great guy actually, but if you're posting that out there, then you're going to have ramifications. Okay, so I just don't understand why this is just something again where they think that you're being censored because of the ramification for your speech. You have the right to say it. You don't have the right to basically move on without consequences. And until that is grabbed, I don't know where this is. Again, does this go to the misinformation? Does this go to constitutional skills not being taught? When you're in high school, I think it's about the time you usually take a class in the Constitution, if not when you're in college. And I'm guessing that that's probably where we are again. As part of the whole curriculum being also, the thing is too is from what saw a report on this, which is what triggered me on the national or got me involved in the national report card, was that it's you have standards. You're graduating kids that are not meeting what standards like that you and I would have to have passed to graduate, because they just want to get the kids out. It's a mill. You're basically pulling them in. You're trying to educate them, and then you're spitting them out regardless, really. And unless you're really, really at the bottom of the barrel, you're not going to repeat anything. They're not going to hold you back. And heaven forbid if you held back a person of color or a BIPOC student, the lawsuits that would be involved with that, or the discrimination claims that would be like that. So instead, you turn out people of all faiths and all colors that are not well educated. You're only hitting, you know, nothing above 30% as far as educational quality in America, people that are meeting standards. And again, that makes them easier to be manipulated because they don't have logic skills. They don't have the ability to read things that well. And they'll believe a lot of things that are told to them because, well, why not? That sounds good and I like it, so must be true to me, or I want it to be true because it's something that I think should be true.
Yeah, that's the thing. I want it to be true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I told my wife the other day, I have no idea what's going to happen. I think there's going to be some idiots that'll do some idiotic things, which is not what Charlie would have wanted. The reality is Charlie, did he say some stuff that was provocative? Of course he did. Did he say some stuff? And just because you find it provocative doesn't mean it to be so. If he says, I think that illegal aliens shouldn't be in the country, doesn't mean that's provocative. That's a statement I think a lot of people get behind. Now we can sit there and like how we should get people to leave and this, that, and the other. I mean, we can have that debate, but the stuff that you thought was super provocative in a different time would have been just a normal conversation.
Right.
And I think a lot of this has to do with college and the fact that you've had this, for really for over a century, when we were really starting to have colleges, in higher education, we didn't really have higher education like Europe. So we send all these people over and they go over there and what do? They see this bastion of free speech, but most of these people are professors, are uber liberal. And that's kind of how this whole thing starts. And next thing you know, over years and decades, we've gotten more to the left, more radical, more non-conversation having. And then we get to the point now where it is Look, Trump drives me crazy, but do I understand the frustration on college campuses where you have only one side of speech? Diversity is only the color of your skin, who you love. It's not actually any of those things. It's what you think, right? I mean, that's just it. It's what you think. And we don't allow that most important of diversity on a college campus. And when it does happen, it's somebody like Charlie who gave a lot of people a platform, whether he wasn't there's a lot of people out there that when they like to mow people down as far as the debate goes, and they like to crush their souls and their kids, and there's a lot of them out there you can go watch, and they come and they say something stupid, and somebody who is obviously older, more better at debating, has the three or four things that they know everything about, they're able to crush them. Charlie wasn't that guy that threw them out there to be made fun of. He allowed the debate to go on, and, there was a lot of things about him, again, that I didn't agree with him on everything, but this whole thing was this, come on, like, who the fuck are we that this is a good idea, that somebody thought you changed? First of all, you lost whatever argument you thought you had. It's over. Your argument's lost. There is no comeback for this. It's like, well, no, let me tell you more about my argument. Your argument's lost because you shut a human up that you didn't like their argument against whatever, because he's not cooperating. We have no idea what it is. And we've heard all kinds of, that's the other thing. He's a right winger. He's a left winger. He's a this. He's a that. I mean, the disinformation is all over the place. All I know is he's in custody. He's not talking.
Yeah. When you talk about the people that are debating, I think we both discussed Ben Shapiro as somebody that really is somebody who comes in and shuts somebody down and basically just kind of just wipes the floor with them when he wins and moves on. Yeah, like you said, Charlie Kirk wasn't like that. I mean, wasn't this thing like have a debate and then take a hat type of thing? He was giving out hats after he debated.
Yeah.
So yeah, and he did it all over college campuses. He was pretty. I mean, that was his shtick. I mean, that's what he did. I mean, stick. That was what he did, and he was very successful at it. I would like to hope he was good at changing minds through logical conversation.
I think
And
he
yeah,
did.
and that's the thing is you have this problem, and whether this person turns out to be a leftist who shot him or not, and I don't really know yet. I think maybe yes, but I don't have any. We don't have anything from them. We don't have a manifesto like we've seen in the past, and like you said, they're not talking, so we don't really know. But if they, but the left does have a problem that we've seen in other areas, especially last year with the college protests for the pro-Palestinian protests, especially amongst those that were Jewish students on campus, where they're really not interested in hearing other sides of conversations.
No.
Basically, and it's also what happens when you start getting into those things. Oh, it's hate speech. Anything I disagree with is now becoming hate speech. Okay, so if you don't agree that there should be rights for certain rights for transgenders, that's hateful. That's transphobic. First of all, transphobic means fear of trans people. I don't think the people that are talking about it are fearful of the trans people. So we at least need to start using proper words, because transphobic is not the proper word. It started with homophobic, and it's gone from there. Everything is phobic, which would be technically scared thereof. And I don't think that's exactly what those people are. So you kind of need to, move that along as far as at least use the proper wordage. Probably not going to happen, but something that you kind of need to think about where this stuff came from. But yeah, anything that you can do to discuss viewpoints, share opinions with people. I love talking to Democrats, to liberals. I want to hear what they're saying. I want to know their logic pattern. I want to know how they got to where they are. There's possibility that I may be wrong on something. I'd like to know if I'm wrong on something. I don't think I am, but there are times when I found out facts that I didn't know that necessarily left or right, but things that I learned, and I consider myself to be a better person. I appreciate learning that. If you teach me something, I'm never going to be angry with you. Or if you somehow convince me, I'm not going to be mad. Or you show me a different opinion that counters what I'm saying, I'm not going to be mad about that because I want to know those things. I don't think that's a trait that a lot of people, or enough people, put it this way, in America share, where they want to learn, they want to know, they want to be right, they want to know what the proper information is. And it is hard out there right now to find truth. And I don't mean your truth because your opinion believes that this is the truth, that Mars is made of green cheese, or the moon's made of green cheese. Spoiler alert, it's not. We've been there. We've proven that. Yes, we've gone to the moon. And I don't want to hear about conspiracy theories that it was all staged on a soundstage somewhere out in the desert, or other crazy things. We went to the moon. Case closed. We're going to go back again, hopefully quite soon, hopefully for the Chinese. But basically, I want to know what's right. I want to know the truth because I don't think you're going to be able to make good decisions unless you actually have the actual facts. You're basically running on what I label all over Twitter as feelings over facts. You're basically relying on your feelings and what you want to be true rather than what the actual facts are that show what is true. Now, I can't expect everybody to basically have that kind of that kind of rigor as far as their conversation. But we got to do better than we're doing because we're clearly not doing enough to get facts out there, to get correctness out there, to basically shut down misinformation and things like that. And I don't know. I mean, you could, yeah, I begin to wonder if social media is actually a good thing for society because you do have the opportunity to share things, but there's so much bad out there with it or negative out there with it. I don't want to burn it down, but you kind of wonder about how do you fix it? And you're absolutely right. And I really have been noticing that you're talking about with the algorithm this week, where I jump into a couple of conversations that are unrelated to what I was dealing with, and then now all I do is get bombarded with that same conversation. Like, hey, wait a minute, I'm really not interested in this. I just happen to answer a couple tweets, and now this is all I got.
Yeah.
And I literally got to step away for a while or go search something to go find the conversations I was really trying to have, which would be about Kirk and his actions and stuff. The other thing I found all over Twitter, I was on Blue Sky for a while this week, but that was just a cesspool of hate for that thing is just scary. If you really want to see scary stuff out
Yeah.
there, if you really want to see what I always used to joke that people go to Reddit because they didn't think Twitter was toxic enough. Well, I think now I need to change it to people go to Blue Sky that don't think Twitter is toxic enough. Because Blue Sky is just a scary pool of people that all tend to lean to one political side, hint not right. And they are just not a happy group of people out there. And I don't know how you fix that either. But like I said, I was going over there a little bit. But the thing that I found on a lot of these on both sites is when there people were citing the hateful quotes, and I put that in air quotes that Charlie Kirk had. Well, a significant portion of them were things like, okay, so you're saying this. He's just
Yeah.
repeating something back, or oh, he's putting out hateful Bible verses. Well, he's reading a Bible quote saying, okay, do you believe that blah 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 type of situation? And people are just taking that as this is what Charlie was saying. Well, yes, he said it, but again, you don't have the context
Yeah.
from within what he said. And context matters importantly because I'm constantly getting these things from my friends on the left. I go, what is the context? Okay. Was it an answer to something? Was he quoting somebody else? And that's another thing where again you got people that are clipping these things that are out there. They're called Rupars because of Aaron Rupar is a guy who's famous for clipping misleading things for Republicans saying stuff. And that's another thing that we've got to, that's got to be addressed. And there's so many people that believe that those types of things that, again, we got to do better. You got to try harder to find stuff, not just take the first thing that you like and that you think is right and then move on and just redistribute it all over the place.
I looked at it and I've yet to see anybody, and I'm sure maybe there's somebody out there that had a debate with Charlie at one of these things, and then afterwards said, "Oh, and then afterwards he was horrible to me." No, I've yet to see anybody. I've yet to
Yeah.
see anybody come forward and say, once the cameras went off, he was 1,000 times worse for me. He was mean. I've never seen any of that. All of it's been whatever happened in front of the camera, how he was is how he was. And I look at our nation and I think, man, but the whole talk of civil war, I need to, first of all, I'm going to slow everybody down. It isn't going to happen. First of all, people on the left, pink hair, all that shit, you guys, right? You out there, you got your humanities study, right? You freaking studied, African dance as it equates to, two-spirit. You're picking the wrong fucking fight. You're going to get absolutely throttled if you think that's what's going to happen. You're going to come up with something. You're going to get beyond destroyed. I always go back to this. Go watch that Antifa little squabble because Antifa is just a bunch of people LARPing like it's the purge. And they've got the answer, and the answer is they're going to crush you. I go back to that dude who throws a punch at that one guy, and the other guy just reaches out and grabs his hand as it's heading in, and the dude just looks at him. Don't think for an instant you're going to do any kind of chaos where you think you're going to really have a civil war. Secondly, we're not having a civil war because we have a military that would stop that in a heartbeat. Secondly, we have police that would stop that hard. And finally, the most important things, we're fucking lazy. All right. So unless it's a freaking app, we're never having a civil war. Okay. So let's just slow your roll. Now, I do worry about, though, people doing dumb shit. That's a bigger issue. I think that's a real thing because people do dumb shit all the time. And as we just saw this past weekend, they do dumb, heinous stuff. And that's a bigger fear I have is somebody is going to do something ridiculous because they think it's the right thing to do to get back on the right. And everybody's like, the right, we always take it. We never fight back. Oh, bullshit. No, I mean, come on. Just everybody stop being victims, okay? Let's just all move on. Let's become adults and let's try to come together a little bit and figure out, hey, you know what? Maybe killing each other isn't the right thing to do. Maybe shooting at each other, maybe going and breaking up, freaking downtowns after something happens isn't the right thing to do. Maybe the best thing to do is to take a deep breath and go, hey, maybe we should have a conversation with Lender. Maybe we should
Yeah.
do.
No, absolutely. You mean you're not concerned about a group of feminist urban studies majors taking over America?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not.
Just
I'm
want to
not.
make sure.
I'm not. I'm
I
not
love
concerned one iota about that because I know it'll never happen.
I love the Civil War talk, and not because of us actually being a civil war. How preposterous it is. Okay, here's one thing that basically to remember: who owns most of the guns in America?
Exactly.
Okay, you're not going to get very far. You put much more logical answers forth than I did there, but that's the basic answer I have to anybody who thinks the left is going to start a civil war. You don't own the guns. We do. The Republicans do. So you're not going to get very far. It's not going to end well for you.
No, it's going to
Okay.
end poorly for you.
Yeah. This isn't a episode of Entourage where you can hug it out in the end, guys. The hugs aren't going to solve the problem. Okay. So no, there isn't going to be a civil war. And I wasn't trying to make light of it. I was just thinking of how silly that kind of talk
It's
is.
so stupid. Who thinks
Yeah.
that? We're going to come. What are you going to do? What are you honestly going to do? What? What? Nothing. Not a.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying there's not crazies out there that can't do something, as we've seen this past week. But what do you
Yes.
think you're going to do in mass? First of all, every state's the opposite color, red and blue, so we're
Yeah.
going to have to travel, right? And as we all know, most Republicans, the people that want to have a civil war, are not the Democrats who are just run of the mill, regular old Democrats, right? Classic liberals. No, it's the uber progressives. Well, you guys could make a move because you don't have jobs, but the Republicans have jobs.
So we can only fight after 5 and before 8 a.m. in the morning. And the Democrats won't be able to do it because they'd only be able to use public transportation to get there.
There you go.
Because they want to cut down their carbon footprint while they're basically trying to put the siege of Savannah in. So yeah, no, it is just crazy. That I just like I said, I love the talk not because I actually think there's going to be one, but because of the ridiculous. It's again, how did you get to that point? What logical path did you take? What facts did you, basically chew through to figure out that we're going to have a civil war and the left has any possible chance of winning said war? It's just not going to happen. Okay, you're bringing up much more logical points again than I am on it, but it's just not going to happen. And again, just stop. It's just it makes you look like an unserious person. I'm sorry. The
Well, they're
people
unserious.
that bring it up.
We're looking ahead towards this week, and I look out
Yeah.
there and I think, okay, so what's going to give, what's not going to give? Is there going to be anything chaotic? I'd like to think there's not going to be, but I don't know what's going to happen. I think there's going to be more firings. I know there's a couple websites out there that have some 20,000
Yeah.
pieces of video and audio of people saying ridiculous things. And I'm not a big cancel culture person. That's never
No.
been my jam. That being said, the some of the stuff that people said are vile, and that is up to your business on whether or not you want somebody around like that. Because if I would not want anybody in a position in my world that I knew would be thrilled if something happened to, somebody on the left, somebody did something, God forbid to Rachel Maddow or something, and they would be celebrating. I'm sorry. I want no part of that. I want no part of you in my life. If that's the way you're going to be, the insanity of that, these are human beings and what the fuck? So but I do fear that, like you said, I feel like they're just waiting for another shoe to drop on some way, shape or form.
Yeah, absolutely. Charlie Kirk's funeral will be next Saturday, I believe, or Sunday
Yeah. It's in Arizona.
in Arizona. So that is probably an event that is probably that. I don't know if this would be not complete accuracy, but that might be the most secure event that's possibly ever happened in America.
It's
I
going to
think
be
there
one
will
of
be yeah, I think there'll be more police there. I don't know, we were at the 2016 GOP convention. That was a pretty dang secure event, from all the, magnetometers you have to go through and the passes and the securities and the security checks and all that. But I think this might be the most, secure, more security focused event that there possibly ever has been. Because yes, and so that'll be interesting to see if somebody tries to do something stupid there. Yeah, I don't want anybody to do anything stupid. I know that kind of seems like something that would make common sense, but I'm not sure we're really running on a lot of common sense right now, and
no,
that's
no.
part of the problem. Yeah, of course I would not be. And again, there's a YouGov poll that's come out. I think I forwarded it over to you, on the is it always wrong to be happy about a political opponent's death? Well, America, if you don't think we've got a problem, the numbers come down to basically 77% of Republicans always think it is wrong to hear about sorry, to celebrate a political opponent's death. Liberals, 38%. So basically half as likely, or maybe I should say twice as likely, to celebrate the death of a political rival. That is not a good number. That
No.
is and that is a very scary number. I've tweeted out, it's at Righty Jim on Twitter or X. So take a look through my feed and I'll send it out again after the show just so that everybody's seen it. But that poll is just a very scary look at America and where we are. And again, I'm not really trying to blame the Democrats for that, but it's a problem on their side. They're constantly countering with, oh, well, all the political violence is on the right. Okay, I'm not going to necessarily agree with that. I'm going to probably say it's fairly split. And also, you're passing around a lot of misinformation on some of the recent deaths that occurred, like the guy that killed the House Speaker in Minnesota. Well,
Yeah.
he was a guy that was appointed by Tim Walz to his administration. Yes, I believe he did vote Republican. Who heard voices that Tim Walz had told him to go kill her and a group of other people because Tim Walz wanted to be the senator from Minnesota. Okay, I don't think that's someone who has political leanings in their motive for
No.
murder. That's just crazy. And crazy doesn't really have a political party for the most part, as much as the Democrats would like to think they're all Republicans that are crazy. And it turns out that it's funny because also what's his
The
not
Shapiro
Ben
in Pennsylvania.
yeah, the bombing of his house. Well, it's funny because if you go to Grok says, "Oh, well, we think it's a reaction to to his speaking out and being a Democrat and has to probably be a conservative." Well, who was it? It was a pro-Palestinian guy who wasn't happy with what he was doing about the genocide in Gaza. And he'd been so upset he actually called 911 and wanted the police to investigate what Shapiro was doing about Gaza. So if that, again, probably a little more on the crazy side, but
Yeah.
still
Well,
had
and
a
and
political.
and and the funny thing, well, not funny thing, I mean, thank God,
Yeah,
and I like Shapiro, I think he's a good guy.
yeah,
He and his family are fine, is that
yeah,
had nothing to do with politics as far as what most people, when they freak
right,
out about politics, it's red, blue, it's
right,
argument on, cultural, because the vast majority of this has nothing to do with shit that matters, right? It has nothing to do with
no,
whether or not you can afford a house, whether or not you have a job, whether or not I mean, this has all to do with culture wars. So much of the
yeah,
people are pissed because he talks about trans, he talked about, like illegal immigration, but really it was the LGBTQ plus and that kind of stuff that it's culture wars that have everybody up in a fucking bind and freaking
yeah,
out. And by the way, Democrats, you've lost because you take the most insane route to the culture war, freaking map to get to where you think you're going that nobody's left when you get there. So, but like the Palestinian thing, well, okay. I mean, there's talk already, and I'm sure you've seen it, Jim, that about, he was terrified of Bibi Netanyahu, Charlie, that he had told his friends a couple days before, that he was terrified
oh yeah.
of
There's a
Bibi,
conspiracy theories out there on that.
and stuff. So, but and it is weird that Bibi booked prime time to go on freaking the night after to talk about it, to say that it was Muslims that did it, which again, but okay, whatever. I mean, but a vast majority of the stuff that matters, nobody argues over.
No,
Right? No. Like
no, no,
whether or not the big beautiful bill is actually a benefit for the wealthy comparatively to the middle class. Yes, it is. Whether or not, immigration was allowed to be rampant and when you finally realize, okay, maybe that was kind of true, but nobody's arguing over any of the stuff that matters as far as economy, what's going on globally, the tariffs, immigration for real. They argue about getting rid of people, but they didn't care that 10 million people
Yeah.
came in the last 4 years until it was too late. And they're like, well, this is a bit too much for even us. They care about the issues that make noise on Twitter.
Yeah, we have the. I mean, sorry, sorry, left. Sorry, Mayor Karen Bass in L.A. We have the right to remove people who are here illegally, even if they don't have a criminal record. Okay, sorry about that. We prefer to get people out that have criminal records that would make America
But you make it
immensely safer.
impossible.
Excuse me.
They make it impossible. It's
Well,
like,
yeah,
"Hey, look,
yeah,
we got a guy in here that's suspected of sexual assault and robbery. He's got 3 orders to be removed." They're like, "Nope."
yeah,
"Okay, fine. Well, we're gonna go over here and take, your freaking grandma
yeah.
away. This makes the
Well,
great, tamales because you won't allow us to get the freaking the shithead."
I love tamales.
I do too.
Tamales are great. It's
Fantastic.
almost Christmas time, almost Christmas tamale time.
Yeah,
But
Christmas
yeah, no,
tamale.
no, but no, you're absolutely right. Another thing is that on the immigration side is there have been numerous ones, especially in LA. Right now they're going after the Home Depots. Okay, so there's a guy who's a criminal illegal alien at a Home Depot. Okay, well it happens to be there's 50 other guys there that might be illegal that are there. They may not be criminals, but they just don't pick up the one guy if there's 50
Yeah.
others that or there's 3 others they know that have got detainers for deportation, and then the other 47 they just don't say, oh well, you know what, I'm going to let you guys walk away. No, they'll check everybody's, citizenship papers. So that's just the way that it is. You get caught up if you're in a group of people and there's bad people in there. You're gonna get, you could possibly be deported. Same thing. If I'm hanging out with a couple of guys that are drug dealers and we're in the same car and the police arrest them, they're just not gonna let me walk away. They're gonna say, well, maybe you might have something to do with this too. Why don't you come on down and answer some questions for us? And if you're clean, you can go home. And if not, well, you may need to spend a night in the county jail until we figure out your story. Unfortunately, hang out with bad people, bad things are going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's part of the problem, the immigration thing. I bring up Mayor Karen Bass just because she is just so much on the wrong side of this, and we start have probably larger problems in LA. Like, oh, I don't know, we burned half the city down, and there's been like 12 burning permits or building permits issued in what we're going on now, eight
Yeah, what
nine
is that
months.
about? What is that? What happened to we're gonna cut the red tape?
It's it is just a mess. There are because there are there's a lots of things that are involved. It's I mean, this is what happens when you've got a large bureaucracy that doesn't really want to talk to each other, who have their own little fiefdoms where you've got these little petty people that have been there for 27 years and they rule this fiefdom. And there's really not much you can really do about them unless someone comes around and smacks them around that's higher up. And then you've got civil servant, rights where they really can't do much. You can't really terminate them. And it's a mess. You've just running into all of these different departments that basically want to run their own way. This is the way we've been doing it, and this is the way we're going to keep doing it, and it's holding up stuff. And it is just an absolute mess. What's the guy Spencer, the guy that used to be on the Beverly or the Laguna Beach show, Spencer Pratt? It's the guy I
Yeah.
think it is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Spencer
he's been
Pratt.
he's been a real voice for it because he and his wife lost their house in the Palisades, and he's been kind of sleuthing around areas looking for stuff and digging up stuff. And there's been the whole fire aid scandal with that $100 million that's that was supposed to be distributed, and basically all it went out to was a bunch of liberal NGOs who were then supposed to redistribute it to people, but it really hasn't gone anywhere. Like one of the groups is a coalition that that works to register Native Americans for votes. Okay, I don't think there were a lot of Native Americans
What
living in
what
those
does it have to
areas.
do with fine, even if there was,
Nothing.
I bet the Native Americans that live there want the money so they can try to rebuild their fucking house.
Sure, absolutely true. But no, it goes to a voter advocacy program, and there's a bunch of these. And actually, one of these might wind up going to a charity. By the way, here's something that's crazy in California. It is legal for a politician to request a donation from a group. It's called a bequested donation. So you can go out and not only can you say, hey, I want you guys to give me money, you can go out there and you can go tell somebody else, I want you to donate to that cause for me. It is crazy. California, I believe, is the only state that does this. And there's a charity that got fire aid money that Gavin had been advocating for getting money for. So that doesn't look very good. And of course, we know Gavin is Mr. Hashtag resist right now. Though he showed up this week after being in Italy for 2 weeks, we think, because no one will really say anything. He disappeared from the state, and he's supposed to do a State of the State speech. That's generally like the State of the Union that the president gives, and it's generally in February or so to kind of say like, what's the legislative calendar, what's the year like, what's the budget like. He did it this week in a 2.5 minute videotaped address. Didn't do it live. That basically was an advertising campaign for Prop 50, which is the redistricting amendment that they're working on in California. And it was like everyone's just going like, "Are you serious? This is what a serious governor does?"
No,
It was absolutely
he's
ridiculous.
not. He's running for president. Governor just
Oh yeah,
happens
no,
to
no, absolutely, yeah,
but that just happens at this point. I mean, nobody's even pretending. That's just where they get the paycheck from.
yeah,
Uh, so well, that's just I
yeah.
love
And
California.
by the way, the we're being inundated with the Prop 50 ads, both sides. The yes on Prop 50 ads,
Yeah.
the there's a requirement that you have to put the largest donors in the ad now. You actually have to put their names or the organizations involved. So
Where
on
where are the numbers?
well, there's no number. Yeah, that's another question, but they're supposed to be the largest ones. The two largest on all these ads that I've seen are CTA, California Teachers Association, which
Shocker.
yeah, but what exactly would they be involved with redistricting for? Well, other than money, I don't quite get it. Second one is Gavin for Governor 2022. It's his leftover PAC money that's actually not for Governor 2022. It's the leftover PAC money that he rolled in from the 2021 recall, where he didn't really have to spend a lot of money, but collected a bucket of money for the for to fight the recall. And basically he spun that money in the 2022 one, and now he's using it for the Prop 50 ads. So like you said earlier, I brought it up because if you don't think he's running for president, yeah, he's using this to run for president so he can go out there and advertise himself as a leader of the hashtag resist movement. And he's the guy that fought Donald Trump. Therefore, I'm the guy that should be elected to, to get, to basically take over the government after we run Trump out of town. That's
And he
basically,
yeah, I guess it's
yeah,
embarrassing. It's
I know it
embarrassing.
is.
Uh, and that's what people, I mean, again, that's what we care about. We care about that stuff. No, people want to know, like this week, the Fed, what are they
Yeah.
going to do? We got, some reports coming out,
Steering us back to real stuff. Sure.
real stuff that,
Stuff that
matter.
matters. Yeah.
Because people are worried. They're worried about their job. They're worried about,
Yeah.
the newest thing is job hugging, where before they were quiet quitting and they were going across the street looking for a new job and they knew they were. Now it's job hugging. They're terrified they're going to lose their job. That's not a confidence in the economy. And despite what, Trump says, the greatest economy in the history of mankind. Well, that's not true. But there are nerves out there, dude. And those things matter to people.
No, absolutely. The Fed is going to be meeting this week. There is the expectations. I believe it's on Wednesday. There'll be an announcement at approximately 11 Pacific, 2 Eastern, of what their decision is. And it looks like the economists are expecting a 25 point or a quarter point, depending on how you understand it, 25 basis point cut in the key interest rates. Now, that also is going to matter because I think a lot of that is baked into the market right now. Not that I'm a
Already,
market
yeah.
wizard, but I think it's pretty much baked in. You can talk to your experts that you have on the show. And also, I think the markets and the economists are looking for a commitment to at least one or two more rate cuts by either the end of the year or sometime into the first quarter of 2026. And I think that the market is going to basically react not just for a quarter point. I think it's going to react positively only if there is at least one and maybe two rate cuts hinted at or indicated based upon current economic indicators going forward. I mean, we've ticked up inflation a little bit, but you're talking 2.7 to 2.9. That's not really a major number considering we were at 8% and 8.5%, 36 months ago. So we've really brought the inflation numbers down. They're basically a lot cooler. Yes, it is ticking up a little bit. And yes, whatever goes on with the tariffs can affect it. But, at this point, inflation is pretty much under control. Rates are a little bit higher than they should be based upon it. So, hopefully they'll get their cut and they'll get an indication of a couple more cuts. I believe then also we've got on, was it Wednesday? We've got purchasing managers index and home sale data, I think
Home
is coming
sale,
out.
yeah, the home construction.
Yeah, home construction. Thank you. It's coming out. Just general economic indicators. You want to see a positive growth in the home, in home building because builders don't build homes. They don't think they can sell them. Then again, even if it's not positive, if interest rates come down the day before, or basically start coming down the day before, that would be a good indicator. Because again, mortgage rates are high. I mean, people were getting 2 and 3% loans, 30 or during the pandemic, let's just say, and then now you're getting 6 and 7% loans. And while that sounds like 3% is not like a lot, it is a lot. And as far as make changing the minimum payments and stuff, it's a lot. It means a lot of people can't afford houses because remember, you've got a lot of houses in a lot of very expensive areas that an interest rate point could mean $300 a month in your mortgage payment, depending upon where it is and what it costs and how much you're paying down on the loan and what the principal balance is. So those things will all matter. You've got Congress back in town. They're going to be taught, or they're back in session. The House, I think, is looking at dealing with the Defense Appropriation Act for 2026.
which is
Um,
huge.
yeah, that's basically like $1 trillion package of bills for basically keep us defensive, or keep the Defense Department going. That is an area that I don't want to make a prediction, but not this year, not next year, maybe 5 years from now, maybe 10 years from now, we may start getting to a point where we are spending significantly less each year on defense than we did in the previous year, which isn't something that's probably happened since maybe post Iraq War
Yeah.
or post Vietnam, if not, or sorry, Gulf War One, post Gulf War One, possibly, because as we keep increasing the debt and the deficit through the debt through the deficit, um, we're running out of a point to where we continue to spend, and so much of the budget is tied up in entitlements that there's not a lot of room there's not a lot of flexibility in where money can be cut from. The defense budget is almost a completely unencumbered budget where it could be basically cut without any sort of laws being violated or having to be changed. Yes, there's commitments on programs and stuff that we've bought that we've got to pay for, and so on and so forth. But as far as staffing and ships for the Navy and planes for the Air Force and troops for the Marines, those may be an area where we are going to have to start cutting in 5 years, 10 years, if we can work something out with the budget deficit, and neither party seems to be inclined. One of the major disappointments in Trump is that he's not done squat and he's just gone with the flow as the crazy spending has gone up. And I think there's something where since the pandemic, spending is up 44%, but revenues are up like 26%.
Yeah.
So all we've done is go ahead.
You can't survive that way.
No, we can't. It just doesn't add up. And for all the Democrats who want to say, "Oh, we just tax more," no, we can't tax. Okay, yes, you can tax more, but you start affecting economic activity. I'm afraid that they're going to begin to understand that and begin to look at. And I know that they've tried in other areas. They've tried in areas. They've tried in states that they would love to go pass a good old, not good old, but a wealth tax,
Yeah.
which is questionable in its constitutionality and is incredibly difficult to administer and basically enforce. It is crazy hard to do it because you've got things that don't add up when you try to do it.
And
Look
you
into it.
also are going up against people that are wealthy, and wealthy people have the opportunity to what? To move. They have the opportunity to
Yes,
decide they're going to leave. Look at every country out there that has thrown a wealth tax on their people. They move, and they move in big numbers.
and
And
they also move within the United States when California implemented
mhm,
a 13.3 tax rate.
yeah,
Funny, first thing when this has been 30 years, first thing that Tiger Woods' agent did immediately after signing him was change his residency to Florida, which has no state income tax, from California, where he lived and grew up for 22 years. They immediately got him out of California. At that point, that probably saved him about 10.5% on every dime that he made as a golfer or as an endorser or whatever. They
yeah.
immediately moved them out of California because they saved 10% by moving them to a tax-free state. And there are people that have moved. Elon's moved, possibly, part of it because of that, and partly because he got mocked by a woman named Lorena Gonzalez, who's a union advocate, she was in the state assembly and was mocking him. And he packed it up. She actually is the head of SEIU, which is probably the largest and only sizably growing union in America. and she's now the head of that group because she's been always been a pro union person. For those who live in California, she's the one who was behind AB 5, which was a bill that tried to unionize all of the gig workers, all of the Lyft drivers, all the
Yeah.
Uber drivers, all the Door Dashers, and basically put a limit on them that it basically ruined what do you call it, freelancers in the media, because if they worked X number of hours or turned in X
To be
number
an
of
employee.
stories, they had to be an employee. Exactly. And it ruined the freelancer market for media. And there are lots of people that they may be hardcore Democrats, but they hate her guts for that. And she's the one that was mocking Elon. Elon said, you know what? I don't have to live in California. I can live in a different state. I can move my company's corporation out of California to any state I want. And you know what? I'm going to do that. And I've figured out, and this was based when Elon was only worth 100 to 150 billion dollars. If he ever sold all of that stock one day and liquidated it, California walked away, or he walked away from California, or cost California anywhere between about 8 and $12 billion in state income taxes by basically running him out of town. Now the feds, it doesn't matter where you live; the feds are going to get their cut of it. But there's 8 to $12 billion that California left on the table by pissing off Elon Musk and driving him to Texas. So congratulations, guys. And that's in
Well
a
done.
state that right now we're sitting on a roughly $20 billion deficit for fiscal 2025, and probably a similar amount for fiscal 2026. So yeah, we're a state that could really have used that money. Not that Elon would be contributing it this year, but over time, that's probably what they walked away from. So it's like you
Nice.
said, people can take their dollars and move them to wherever they want. Yeah, England was one of those in the 60s that tried to do that and
France, just
saw people.
what, several years ago, right? And then
Okay,
everybody just moved across the way to Belgium.
yeah,
So they were all within driving distance on the border, but they just moved to Belgium and cost them, they saw because when you have money, you have options,
yes,
and people will take those options and they will run with them. And if they think that you are basically looking at them as a paycheck and treating them as such, they're going to leave eventually. You can only abuse people for so long, is the way they look at it.
yeah.
And they're trust me, California is still trying to figure out how they get rid of Prop 13.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. There are teachers groups that consider that money was stolen from them when Prop 13 passed in 1976. They had money that they're rightly entitled to, and I don't know if they expected to get all 50 years back now or what, but they felt that that money belonged to them and it was stolen. Now, if that's not a problem with a sense of entitlement, I don't know what is. And it is just mind-boggling when you look at that. They're going, seriously, people, do you
Yeah.
really not did you really not able to read the room on this one and figure out why even 50 years later that really sounds stupid, or that really sounds like short-sighted, that you're not, who are you, who would you advocate for? Do you advocate for the students, or do you advocate for your union members?
Union
And I think
members.
I know the end. Yes, unfortunately, we know the answer to that based upon where we are educationally. Oh, by the way, we talked about those numbers falling on the national report card. Spending per student in America on a inflation adjusted basis up over 50% since 2020, since 2000. So 25 years, 50% spending more per student on a inflation adjusted basis. Scores are just going down. So
It's
the
sad.
answer is it's not just money that's the problem when it
No.
comes to education.
All right. Last thing here. You think anything crazy is going to happen this week?
I'd like to say no, but I would say 25% chance that something does. And I would definitely watch the Kirk funeral or events around the Kirk funeral for stuff for Antifa showing up or for whatever. But yeah, like I said, we're not in a good position right now, and we're not at the bottom yet, as far as I can figure out.
Oh God, it's a race to the bottom. Well, dude, it was good talking. It's always good to look to the week ahead. We'll do it again. Of course, we'll have you on the show on Friday, and we'll do it again next Sunday. You have yourself a good one. I like how you got your. Who is that behind you? What race car company?
That is the livery for the 2024 Miami race for Ferrari. For that would have been Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, 55, Carlos Sainz, who was racing for them in 2024.
Who's winning it this year? The whole thing.
Probably Oscar Piastri. He's ahead right now. That Orlando Norris definitely be a McLaren driver, and McLaren will probably within 3 races from now win the constructors title because they have doubled the points of anybody behind them. because Red Bull cannot put together a second driver that can score points, and Ferrari is not consistent, and Lewis Hamilton has been having lots of problems in that car, and is not and has been fighting, and he's been scoring some points, but not enough. But there are consistent weeks where McLaren is 1-2, 1-3, 2-3, 2-4, top five almost every race other than mechanical problems. And if one driver falls out in a rare occurrence, the other guy is going to be top two, top three. So no one's going to be catching them for a lot of points. Very quickly, next race will be next weekend in Azerbaijan, another country that teeters on the edge of crazy at times, but also is oil rich like crazy too.
That's good times right there. Right on,
Yeah.
brother. Good talking to you as always. We'll do it again next week.